Hey everybody, this episode of Working Dog Radio is brought to you in part by our friends at Ray Allen Manufacturing. Everything you need for dogs, whether it's working dogs, pet dogs, sport, anything, rayallen.com, the best in the business. Check them out. We got a discount code, Working Dog Radio, for 10% off.
Another one of our favorite partnerships is with the one and only Dogtra. These guys are producing some amazing tools in the dog training world. Everything from e-collars, GPS tracking, ball training. If it's electronic and it goes on dogs, go to Dogtra. They're revolutionizing the way you communicate with your dog. Hit them up at dogtra.com. Use the discount code WDR10 for 10% off a single item over $200.
The biggest and baddest conference in canine anywhere in the United States is HITS. Every year, each and every year, hundreds and hundreds of vendors, thousands of attendees, the best instructors around. It got moved because of COVID. It's going to be July 7th through the 9th in 2021. Check it out. HITS, letter K, number 9.net to get signed up. You can't go wrong. HITSK9.net. Let's see you there next year.
Yeah, speaking of some guys that are going to be there next year, the Kinetic Dog Food guys. Fueling a working dog can be tough, but they need high-quality food to give them the energy and the nutrients that they require for the work that we ask them to do. Kinetic Dog Food is a great balance of healthy meats and grains and is specifically made for working and sporting dogs. Be sure to hit them up at kineticdogfood.com.
Easily, hands down, the best product we've ever represented on this podcast is Quick Derm by Vet Care. Ted and I use it in the kennel on our dogs when they get goofy injuries, and ourselves when we also get goofy injuries. They have a discount code for us, 10WDR, for 10% off your first order. Check them out at vetcare.us. All right, everybody, Working Dog Radio, we are back. Video broadcasting the bite, video and audio on our YouTube channel. If you do not subscribe yet, please go check out Working Dog Radio on YouTube. Hit that like and subscribe. Check it out. We're pulling clips. You get to see my ugly face and Ted's, gorgeous man beard thing going on there. And speaking of Ted from Tulsa, Oklahoma, what's up, buddy?
It is, I'm just doing handler school, doing dog stuff. We delivered a dog today to Weatherford, Oklahoma. Single purpose dog. Her name is Mama. Drug dog. She's going to do an experienced handler. It's going to be great, little GSD. And her handler is a fantastic person and finds a ton of drugs. So it'll be really good. I'm happy about that. I've still got Chris here from Plainfield. He's gonna be with me until mid-January. He's gonna go to the HRD in Mesquite, by the way, 11th to the 13th. It's gonna be his graduation week. But we worked on outs today with Jesse, and God bless that fucking dog bites hard. My 3 fingers on both hands are numb. I did some outing in the box, like we teach dudes at the decoy schools and at HRD seminars. And geez, I had him out in 9 reps, but those were rough 9 reps. That dog bites super hard. And I think I was using like an intermediate or like a puppy sleeve or something. I just grabbed it. It was in the detection building. I'm like, oh, this will work. No, I chose poorly. It was awful. What are you doing?
Same thing. Handler school going on. Got 3 handlers in it. I mentioned on the last episode that I probably was going to have to replace a dog out of the out of it. Yeah, I decided today we're probably going to do that. So I got to call the admins tomorrow and let them know, hey, old boy's going to be here a little bit longer because I got to switch him to another dog. It's really weird, man. It was like I told you, and I've told everybody, I had 2 dogs trained for right-handed people. They sent left-handed handlers.
Right.
Not a big deal, really. The one dog rocking it. The other dog, and because we have a green handler and he sucks with the leash like all green handlers do. It's just confusing him so much, the dog, because he's super handler focused. So if it's confusing, he just sits and looks at the kid. He's like, fuck it. I think he was hammered on a little bit overseas. So on trying to get some high level competition obedience in him before my vendor got him, before he came to me. So his default move is to do nothing. Only on detection. That's it. He does tracking good. Rockstar bite dog. I'm going to try to see if anybody wants a single purpose patrol dog, maybe a SWAT dog or something. Rocks the bite work, does really well. Just it's not worth it because where he's going to go, dope is what they're really going to use him for, and he's no longer even interested in trying. He's just confused because he's working another direction, and the kid's just a leash shit show. So
yeah,
it sucks.
Yeah. So we're gonna finish up these handler schools, and then I've got some dudes from Missouri, Kansas, and another Oklahoma. Yeah, another Oklahoma dog. And then I got another dude coming up tomorrow. So from one of the counties down south of me to work on some stuff. So busy. And it finally warmed up a little bit. So that I'm stoked about. So speaking of warm, we have a guest on tonight that I've interacted with for years. And has been around the dog world for a long time on more than one continent. And the reason I make the warm comment is because he makes the hottest fucking hot sauce in the world. And you wouldn't think the dude from Northern Europe would be able to make hot sauce. I was like, oh shit, how hard can this be? It's rough. And on top of that, he's a damn good dog trainer. So, and probably has a lot to tell us about how things have changed and where he thinks they're going to go. So, with that, I want to introduce our guest tonight, which is Rik Wolterbeek. So Rik, what's going on, man?
I'm good.
Yeah.
I'm freezing my ass off. It's 30 degrees, but that's what you can expect here in Northwest Illinois. Retired, but still working dogs. I found my next niche, pet dogs. You won't believe how much fun that is helping people. Their little pets behave in a sense that dog is happy, customers are happy, and the trainer is happy also with some real simple work. Doing this stuff already since 45 years.
Wow.
And the last 35 professionally.
Wow. So give us a little bit of background, because I can tell by your accent that you're clearly from Northern Illinois. So give us a little background on where you're from, how you got into working dogs 45 years ago. That's longer than I've been alive. So give us a little bit of background. You're obviously from Northern Europe, and we'll go from there.
Correct. Well, my accent is not Northern Illinois. My accent is from the Netherlands, of course, but I understand the joke. I started in dogs when I got myself a Bouvier, Cito Jackie van der Duintop, salt and pepper Bouvier. I tried to train him for KNVP. It didn't work out, so I retired the dog, but at that time I didn't want to get rid of the dog, so I got stuck with him. We didn't have room for any other dogs. So I started decoying for the club I was a member of. And that's how it all started. I enjoyed it so much that within 2 years, I got certified as a regional decoy in KNVP. And about a year later, I became certified as a national decoy in KNVP. That was when about 40 years ago. About 4 years later, I got an invitation to decoy for a security company. Because they started working with KNVP titled dogs. That was a requirement in Holland. Dogs had to be titled in KNVP if you wanted to work for a security company with a dog. And they also had to pass a test every 2 years. Starting working part-time for the company as a decoy, the guy in charge of the canine unit got promoted. And I was asked to take that job, and I did it. I was happy to do it. I stayed there for 11 years till I went to the United States and continued working with dogs here in the States. And I moved to the States in 1993. And that's it in short.
That's the Cliff Notes for sure. But so let's go back all the way back to the beginning with the KNPV. What were the dogs like back then? What were you seeing compared to now? Is it pretty KNPV's been the same all the time? What were you seeing the dogs back then?
In those days, you trained, you got force fed, plain and simple. with the methods that were already used probably since the beginning of KNVP, and you were told we do it this way and there's no other way. There were small variations, but there were no such things as balls on the field. There were no such things as food on the field. Everything was done because the dog had to do it. If I look back, even the teaching was done by making the dog understand this is your safe spot, do it, and otherwise there are consequences. Dogs picked up pretty fast on that. And after that, the method was plain and simple, and that was in those days. If you do wrong, you get a correction. If you do right, your first reward will be not getting the correction. Of course, nowadays, it is not valid anymore. It is not done anymore. Science has improved regarding dog training, and everybody and their mother now has a ball, food, a clicker, you name it. It's all available to make things happen the right way. In the past, because of that, we had pretty tough dogs. I bought dogs with the KNVP title that I was scared to death for, but I needed dogs like that for the company I worked for, because we went to do security a lot at soccer games. And as you might know, at soccer games, the hooligans from each club, they were fighting with each other, sometimes up to 200 people that were fighting. And we had to provide security for our own people that were working at soccer games, but also for people that we were told to take care of. So as a result of that, I bought dogs for the company I worked for with an attitude. And my first contact with people from the United States was at my club, where people came to look at dogs, mostly private people that wanted one of those crazy dogs from Holland. I sold a couple of those to private police officers. I kept in touch with them, and as a result of that, I was asked to do seminars, and it was in the late 80s, early 90s, in the States. In those days, I didn't have much knowledge about the United States, in the sense that I thought the only place where it was nice and warm was Florida. So all other invitations that I got for seminars, be it even in New Orleans or in Texas, I declined. I only wanted to go to Florida. So about 3 seminars there, and then I moved to the States in '93.
So yeah, I used to tell people, but years ago, if you got a KNVP title dog, you were about one hard correction from that dog taking your lunch. Like, that dog was coming, he was like, "Yeah, I'm done with this shit," and because of the way they were training back then. So when you talk about everybody and their mother has a ball, clicker, and food, does that include you? Did you evolve into that type of training too?
Of course, you have to evolve, and I did. I have food with me. I train pet dogs right now, as I told you guys, and I don't need any corrections when I teach a dog something. I try to do everything motivational, but at the same time, I always tell people who I discuss this training with that all the new methods work, but at the same time, my old methods work also. So I work for a friend part-time, and I basically get the problem dogs, although the problems are not really big for me, but at the same time, you need a little bit different attitude to make them understand, hey, buddy, you cannot bite me because I don't want to get hurt. And sometimes you have to correct a dog with a paper towel, so and sometimes you have to hit them with a 2x4.
Yeah.
And just make them understand, don't do it. And I guarantee you they understand real quick. They cannot do that stuff anymore. And then it is a matter of conditioning the dog in the sense that they understand it's a big no-no, not even strangers. And that works pretty good. But I have evolved tremendously. If I just look at the exercise where in Holland, where the dog has to find a box in the woods, everybody does it with food now, or there are not so many people that make a dog crazy for the box, but there are still people that do it the old method, and it still works. But the motivational stuff is now not taking over, but it is used way more and a lot in Holland in KNVP. And as a result of that, many dogs that wouldn't pass in my days a KNVP certification would pass certification this year, because they know how to build a dog up. If we had a dog that couldn't handle the stress that we put on just to make them lay down, then basically we said, well, we go find another one. And that's not the case anymore.
So, having been around it for a long time, you are in Netherlands is not a huge country, and the program is as big as it is. You probably have a pretty good understanding or knowledge of most famous dogs. And I bring up famous dogs because I'm going to kick it over to Ted, because I know anytime he's talking to someone that's been around doing KNVP in the Netherlands for a long time, he has a specific dog he likes to talk about. And I know you want to bring it up today, Ted, so go for it.
So everybody knows, and we had this, like, I think on episode 3, I think is what it was, with Mike Suttle, and I called it unicorn hunting. But you were around back then, so were you ever in contact, or what was the consensus on 𝗔𝗡𝗗 when he was alive? BRN 60 for those that are listening.
Well, I never really looked at things that way, plain and simple, because in those days there was nothing available to see farther than where you went. So it was all talk. You have to keep in mind, in the late 70s, early 80s, we went to a club and you saw a dog hit like 100 miles an hour, or I went to do a certification trial in another province. Then I said, wow, that's a good dog. But I didn't know anything about it. I was never interested in breeding. I just relied on the knowledge of people that were available to help you out finding a good dog. So all the names that one would mention, let's say in this interview, I know of them, but I never met them. But at the same time, they have proven themselves to be good dogs. So nowadays, if you have a dog that is good, then it is fairly easy to promote that dog on social media. In those days, we didn't have anything else than 1 puppy, 2 puppies, 3 puppies, and people say, wow, that's a good dog, he produces, so let's breed him to another female. And that is the advantage nowadays of social communications, where people all over the world know, hey, that dog has produced good. When I went to the States, everybody asked me about bloodlines. They knew about parents and grandparents way better than me, and I always had to tell people, I don't know shit about that stuff. The only thing that I'm interested in is in the dog in front of me, in the pup in front of me, and see if they fit my standards. And that's how I also bought dogs. When I had my business in Florida, I bought dogs from Holland. They have to fit my standard. I wouldn't buy a dog that I wouldn't work for the security company that I worked for. So that was my standard. And but at the same time, there were many dogs that were good, but at the same time not good enough for me. But every dog that came from Holland had to be good, and that's not true. That is a fairy tale.
Yeah, that's and we talked about that a lot. Like, we had a dog come over from Holland that was a really nice dog. He's a fantastic patrol dog. We bred him, and the puppies were terrible. And he's a fantastic patrol dog, and he just was not a producer. But it seems like there was another interview from somebody several years ago, and I guess 𝗔𝗡𝗗 supposedly was bred 130 something times to 40 females and had 1,100 offspring. And that dog's been dead since Clinton was in office. And now, even today, it's 2020, almost 2021, and people still talk about having 𝗔𝗡𝗗 within their lines or having Django, which was a direct dog off of him in their bloodline. So it's always interesting. I always like to ask guys that had time or that had access to him what that was like and around that time, because you basically summed it up. Like when you were there, it was kind of like, nobody knew who the hell he was. It didn't really matter. And it wasn't until kind of after the fact that he got a reputation as whatever he is now. Not to say that he obviously doesn't deserve that, but it's interesting to hear that from that perspective. So yeah, it's super interesting to hear that for sure.
Yeah. I'm the same way with you, Rick. I don't know much about the bloodlines. I go on a dog by dog basis. If they have a BRN crate, I'll look it up, and I may even have somebody look at it. But you know who also does not care about bloodlines? Police departments.
True.
Don't care. They don't care where the dog's bloodlines are. There are a couple guys that I've ever met that we've sold dogs to at police departments that kind of knew a little bit. And they're asking me questions. I'm like, yeah, dude, I don't know. It could be written in Spanish. I don't know. I know this dog right here, and he's awesome. His brother sucked. He's great. Whatever. It's on an individual basis, So one of the things that's fascinating to me about Europe, and Ted and I talk about this a lot, is how deeply ingrained the dog sport stuff is in, say, like KNVP in the Netherlands. Ted, we talked about it. You don't think the guys over here really understand it, do you?
No. Well, that's the thing. Like, we talk about wanting to have a breeding program in the United States, and I think the thing that people don't get about the United States is that it's really, really big, right? When we have dudes come over from Europe, they're like, oh, I was in Vegas one year, and we had a guy who's like, can you drive me to LA? I'm like, bro, it's fucking 4 hours the wrong way, and on a good day. And he was like, oh, but it's only like this far on the map. I'm like, no, I mean, I get it, but it's not. And, like the Netherlands is really small. So the United States, we don't have a culture of raising police dogs and whatever else. And, in Holland, KNVP, Rick, I want you to talk a little bit about like how ingrained in that culture it is. Like it's a cultural thing for that part of that country, and I mean it has been for a very, very long time.
And KNVP, and it's the same with other dog sports. If you really want to go into it, it's a way of living. When I was in Holland doing KNVP, I was for quite some time training director of my club. You came 4 times a week: Tuesday evening, Thursday evening, Saturday afternoon, Sunday morning. The only reason that you couldn't come at many clubs, including mine, was if you had to work. If you stayed away without notification, the whole club was pissed like hell, because the KNVP program relies on everybody to work. You don't have one dog on the field for, I don't know if you have seen that, if you've been in Holland, you don't work one dog on the field for 25 minutes and then another dog comes on the field. You work many dogs on the field, up to 3 or 4. But you need help. So one person is standing where the small article search is done. One person is standing where the jumps are done. One person is going to where the swimming is done, and it is all practicing. And one person is doing where the healing is done. And then when one person is done with all the jumping, then he brings the box in the woods, and everybody is rowing and taking turns and helping each other. So if one person or 2 people don't show up, then the whole system that you have created through experience is messed up. So you just made rules. Hey, you have to come. If you cannot come, you have to let us know. And if you didn't come too often, then you basically got the boot, because they said, well, we cannot rely on you, so we don't want you to come. It's better to work with 4 people that are determined than with 8 people who you have to wonder, is he coming tomorrow? Oh, it's raining, he's probably not showing up today. You cannot do that. So it is a way of living, but it is for other sports also, even in the States. Another thing that you have to keep in mind, we have a history, KNVP, Schutzhund in those days. since 1909, 1907. Here in the States, the big thing that makes things difficult is the distance. Holland from east to west is about 2.5 hours. From north to south, except for the very southern part of Holland, is about 3.5 hours. Tomorrow I go to do some training because our young dog needs that, and we drive 6 hours just to train one day. There are very few people who don't want to do that, cannot do that, just have a problem doing that and to put themselves. So you have itty bitty clusters of training, and that is for all sports where people are really enthusiastic, but there are areas in the States where there's no sport at all, and somebody finds on the internet that I like this sport, and they start inquiring, and there's nothing around unless you drive 2 or 3 hours, and that is just not happening in Holland. We have close access to a club. My club was only 10 minutes away. Jump on my bike, dog next to me, all my stuff is at the club, and I go train my dog and go back on the bike with the dog next to me. And that's what many people did in the past.
On a bike. Wow.
Like it.
Yeah, for sure. We are going to take a break real quick. We come back. We're going to talk about some stuff that's been going on in the United States, and we're going to talk about the hot sauce pro show. So don't fast forward through the commercials. We'll be back. Hang out.
All right, guys. One of our best sponsors, one of our oldest sponsors, are the Perkinsons down in Harmony, North Carolina at Highland Canine. We have a ton of people going down there for their handler schools, their trainer schools, their full-on dog training schools where you learn police dogs, pet dogs, all aspects of it. They have amazing dogs for sale, classes for police, classes for police supervisors, pretty much a full gamut of anything you need in the dog world. Highland Canine definitely is the place to go. Check it out. I can't tell you enough about how great these people are. Everybody I know that's been there for their training say it is no joke. Check them out. tacticalpolicecaninetraining.com. Get your butt down there in North Carolina, man, and learn.
Speaking of full service, it's no secret that we love the guys up in Colorado Springs at Ray Allen Canine Equipment. We use their products every single day. Their mission statement says it all: to be a world leader in the quality and innovation of professional canine equipment for police, military, Schutzen, ring sport, to exceed our customers' expectations, to deliver on time every time at a fair price. We full-heartedly believe that they are true to that statement, since it's our go-to one-stop shop for everything canine. They literally have everything there except the damn dog. You can get in the car, but they have inserts, they have hot poppers, they have e-collars, they have leashes, they have regular collars, harnesses, they have muzzles, they have some of the working dog dragage muzzles that end up starting their life in my living room. So be sure to check them out, rayallen.com, and use the discount code Working Dog Radio written all the way out for 10% off.
We really are so lucky and happy to be partners with the guys down at Kinetic Dog Food. The stuff that those guys are doing, man, it's so good. The ingredients that they have, we had them on a podcast. It was eye-opening. Listen to them talk about the goofy stuff that goes into dog foods and in the business. They are honest. They are great people. Kinetic Dog Food. They will drop ship you a pallet if that's your thing. If you got that many dogs, they'll drop ship you a pallet anywhere you need it. KineticDogFood.com, best in the industry, and definitely a personal favorite of Working Dog Radio. KineticDogFood.com.
Yeah, and if you're out on the east side of the country, be sure to hit up Southern Coast Canine. They're a reputable canine kennel that does dog sales and training services located in sunny New Smyrna, Florida. Southern Coast Canine provides services worldwide, from purchasing your next single or dual purpose working dog to handler courses and seminars. Southern Coast is a great resource to check them out. You know, the Heisers run a great ship down there, and obviously the weather's nice. So if you live in a part of the country where it sucks half the time, year weather-wise, that's where you go in the wintertime. That's how you get your admin, send them down, get them to send you down there in the wintertime when it's nice and sunny. They do a fantastic job with trainers courses, decoy schools, and handler courses for green dogs and finished dogs and retreads too. So be sure to hit them up at Southern Coast Canine, that's letter K number 9.com, and get scheduled or go find you a dog.
Dogtra. We post on our social media all the time. Ted and I using Dogtra. I love everything about him. I think the Dogtra 1900S is the gold standard for police canine. It is a perfect collar. The remote size is perfect. You can do the hands-free device if you want. Their ball popper, their Dogtra YS600 bark collar. I've got a drawer full of those at the kennel. I want my place nice and quiet. The bark collars solve a lot of the thrashing in cars. If you got that dog that spins up at training in the back of the car, get yourself a Dogtra YS600 collar. One of our biggest sponsors, one of our biggest friends, big supporters of the podcast, dogtra.com. They do have a discount code too for us, is WDR10 for 10% off a single item over $200. Don't mess around. Don't wait. Dogtra.com.
After 2 years, I decided to try to become certified as a regional helper. Regional is every province in Holland is a region of KNVP. So when you do a regional, you have to do all the KNVP exercises where a decoy is involved with 4 dogs. Those dogs are all KNVP titled. And you try to get easy dogs in a way that you know the dogs, that you don't have to expect anything bad to happen, where it is fairly easy to pass the test. The test is taken by 3 judges and from your region, and they throw you basically in the deep water, and you just can swim a little bit, and you try to get to be successful to get out of the water. Once you pass that test, officially you have to wait at least 1 year, I think in those days, to be able to apply to become the national decoy. National decoy is top grade of the decoys in Holland. In order to pass that, you again have to work 4 dogs. But this time the judges are from another region, and they will put you to the ringer completely, including theoretical stuff. But they put you to the ringer. You must be a really bad decoy if you don't pass for national decoy, because your club members and your club have to ask and promote you and your region to become a national decoy. You cannot do that by yourself. So once you pass, then the real shit happens, because all of a sudden you are sent to another region and you get 8 dogs in front of you that you have never seen before. And in those days, you didn't know if the dog was coming on your bicep or just below your knee on a stick attack going about 30 miles an hour. So that was quite an experience in the beginning. But I made it throughout of it, and I did that decoying in Holland for 17 years. Nowadays, it is still the same. It is fairly difficult to become certified as a decoy, but with the help from your club members and your region, it is all doable. But it takes a lot of work to make it happen the right way.
So we had a guy come from Holland, and he came over, and I think it was, I want to say 2015, he came and put a decoy school on for us. And we were talking, and, you know, he's been around for a while and was a national decoy and stuff. And he said, and I don't know if you're hearing this from back home, that the problem now is getting the young guys that want to take the punishment and go through it and actually do it, that they're struggling to find, you know, guys that still wanted to get into it. Are you hearing that, or are they kind of turning that around?
Absolutely right. But that is in any sport. If I would translate it literally from Dutch, nowadays there are more sissies on the field working with a dog than in the past. And if they get hurt a little bit, they might start crying or they piss their pants. So only the good ones So it gets harder and harder to find guys to do the work. Everybody can do the work, and a mother can do the work on the field at your club. There's no big deal. But the moment you have to step up and go to another region or go to a regional or a national trial, then the real work starts to come, because not only do you have to do your work correctly, but you have to make sure that you do everything the right way. And that's difficult. It takes a lot of work before you are actually invited for the nationals. I had the honor, and it is really an honor, to be invited for 3 times for national events. And it is plain and simple, times has changed, so our decoys are more and more in demand, and it becomes more and more difficult to find things the right way, and find guys that want to do it all the way.
Yeah, we run into that. Everybody wants to be a decoy until they get in the suit, and then they're like, "Oh man, this hurts." I'm like, "Yeah, dog bites hurt. They're supposed to. That's kind of a thing. Why we do it." So, so talk about like coming to the United States, and when you got here, talk about the difference between like what was going on in Holland versus what was happening in the United States, and then we'll move forward from that point.
Right. You won't believe it, what I'm saying now, but it is true. I got imported by the smartest woman in dog sports in 1993 in Holland, my ex. In those days, it was fancy for people who did sports to have somebody from Germany, mostly from Germany, come over for a month, for 2 months, and show people from the States the ropes of 𝗔𝗡𝗗. I met my ex at a seminar in Florida, and one thing led to the other, and she invited in the past already. She was already breeding Malinois in those days in '93, and she invited me to come over, and one thing led to another, and I moved to the States in '93. Right from the get-go, I got busy training with people and doing seminars, invited by law enforcement guys, and I was the crazy guy. When a dog came from Holland, I took good bites from without presenting my arm, and they were flipping out that somebody could do that. I think in those days I was the only one that did that shit, but I always made first sure that the dog was actually from Holland and trained in KNVP, because as you guys know, many dogs that come from Holland are trained in Eastern Europe, and they haven't yet seen one training field in Holland at all. But in those days, I just checked if the dog was actually from Holland, trained in KNVP, just did a couple of things, and then I said, okay, send the freaking dog. So I impressed people quite a bit, and as a result, I became the new kid on the block. The grass is always greener when it is new. So I got real busy doing seminars all over the United States, Central America, just about decoying for law enforcement mostly.
That's still in fact, our company HRD does one, like we're getting ready to do one in January, first week of January. In fact, when this publishes, this is, by the way, Happy New Year, everybody. This episode goes up on January 3rd. Right when this is happening, I think there's a decoy camp in Valdosta, Georgia for HRD, but it's all for police officers. So yeah, it's still a thing, like, and it's an extremely important part of it. And I remember back when I started, it was like there wasn't a ton of quality decoy work being done. And this is not even that long ago, like, 10 plus, like a little over 10 years. So it's not like 40, or 45. Yeah. And it's interesting to hear that even back then that was a problem, and it still hasn't caught on. There's guys across the country that say, oh yeah, we got to have great decoys, and it's the most important factor in maintaining a patrol dog. But they're just, the one thing that I tell people all the time, and it's like, really the only way to get good at decoying is just decoy. Like, it's just like shooting. Like, you have to get taught correctly, and you have to just get smashed by dogs over and over and over and over again. And you made a good point. And I tell people that all the time when we teach decoy camps. You said, easy dogs, or dogs that are predictable, so that you can learn how to do it correctly and you don't have to problem solve when you start out. And that's one thing we focus on when we start teaching decoys. In fact, I shared a video today of my intern Josh. The first time he was in a bite suit, and he was with my dog Lek, who's very, I guess, easy in terms of he targets well, he outs correctly, he grips correctly, does everything kind of automatically because we taught him correctly. But it's easier to teach a decoy that shit when the dog does it correctly versus having to throw an inexperienced dog with them and then having them solve problems, which is extremely important. So when you were doing all of those seminars, did you see a lot of the same problems that we see today, like which is dogs that don't target well, dogs that don't have good grips, all that kind of stuff?
Right. The thing in those days mainly was the seminars were 5 days, both of the time. Friday was certification because they always made a combination with it. And in those days there were 4 or 5 groups in the United States of instructors. I was member of, so to say, of 2 groups, and many times the problems were pretty much the same, because they didn't have good obedience and authority on the dog. The dog was basically on vacation when it came to bite work, yelling and screaming and all that shit, and never had good results. And then this little guy, 168 pounds, put on a suit and show you what the dog can do, but also show you what needs to be done in order to make the dog operate correctly. And I always told people, I can only do 1 miracle a week, and meaning make every dog out. I cannot make every freaking dog out on certification day. I focused always on the most difficult one, and it was quite successful because I always chose a dog that was from Holland. And if a dog is either KNVP titled or pretty far in his training, the methods were pretty much similar. Like I said before, if you don't do right, you get a correction. If you do wrong, you don't get a correction. So I started beating dogs up in those days. If they didn't out, yelling and cursing at them in Dutch, and those dogs kind of said to themselves, holy fuck, I'm back in Holland, I better behave. 2 days, and those handlers only had to tell the dog out or los in Dutch, of course, and the dog dropped down on his ass. What happened after that week, nobody knows, but at least they were able to pass certification. What you guys do now, and I've said that many times to friends in Holland, what you guys do now with those decoy things and that high-risk deployment things is something that we did in those days in the evening hours. In the daytime, it was always scheduled obedience, tracking, and bite work. Anything special, and they call it in those days special, I never called it special because I didn't train that way, was done in the evening hours. So they set up scenarios that they came upon, and I was trying to help them out to make things happen the right way. For instance, go into a dark room, completely passive, cardboard boxes all around you, and see if the dog wants to commit just for the bite, because you send them in to bite. And all those things happened only in the evening hours because there was no time to do that in the daytime. You guys have made it a thing, and I think it's very good to do it and focus on things like that, where people are actually fighting with the cop decoys, and the cop is either on top or under the decoy, and see if the dog wants to engage and wants to engage the right guy, that's for sure. So all that crazy shit that you guys do in the daytime, we did in the evening hours for fun, and most of the time only, let's say, if we had 40 people, only maybe 20 showed up. The other ones were just drinking and having fun. They thought it was not important enough to do it.
Yeah, we just call it doing hood rat shit in the dark. And I tell people all the time, like, we didn't invent any of this. And most of these scenarios that Eric and I run, and Ray, are either from stuff that have happened to our guys or failures or successes that we've seen. And yeah, I'm like, we didn't invent any of this. And I tell people that all the time. I mean, you guys, like, it sounds like you guys were doing it 40 years ago, but you're doing it in the dark. We do it in the dark. We try to make it dark. We have to do it during the day, but because that's when everybody wants to train. But yeah, it's interesting that you guys were doing it back then, and it makes me super happy that it makes me super happy that we did not come up with anything new. Like, I didn't do anything special. We just have our own flavor. So yeah, Eric, what do you got?
So I got two questions for you. One, so if anybody goes and watches YouTube videos on KNVP, it's almost always just stick attack. That's what everybody sees. They love to see that dog come in there. But tell me, how's that scored? I'm always curious how that's scored. And my second question is, a lot of the, we got a lot of friends that are involved in Mondio ring and French ring, and the grip is not judged. And I think, though, it's a big part of the KNVP, or I might be wrong. Talk about the grip and how it's judged and how important you guys view it.
You are right. Everybody is talking about the stick attack. It is the most difficult part of KNVP program, in my opinion. I can teach a monkey to do all the exercises as a handler, or a decoy, but I cannot teach him to do the stick attack, because stick attack takes timing. The rulebook states the decoy has to hit the dog with a stick before he bites. That split second before he bites. Now, if you know the dog and you have done him 100 times, then you will hit him every single time the right way. There are very few people that will allow you to do that, because after a while you get so handy with it that the dog starts hitting the brake. Every dog has his breaking point. I always look at things this way before I start talking about the points. If you go to a club in the past, and we are doing APA now here in the States, that is KNVP program here in the States. If you ask a handler, can I hit your dog? And the handler says, yeah, that means only one thing. He doesn't think you will impress his dog at all. The moment people say, no, just don't hit him, just keep the stick up in the air, then you're probably doing a pretty damn good job hitting the dog with the stick. The rule book says preferably from the shoulders towards the tail. 90% of the time, and nowadays you can see that real good in slow motion, it is crossed over the back. But you have to hit the dog, because everybody looks at that. Now, as far as the points, it is a big exercise. There's a lot of points. 7 times 5, 35 points. And it starts already at the beginning. At the start, you have to control your dog. Afwachten, opvolgen van command, or waiting for the command to be given to you to go after the decoy. When the dog is in pursuit, he has to go full force. The decoy goes out of sight, so the dog has to keep going, and that is just training. When the dog hits the guy, he has to commit and bite and not let go. The way of stopping, yelling at the dog, hitting the dog, all those things are part of the exercise. 7 times 5, 35 points, a very crucial thing. The one thing that is different with any other sport in the world, I dare to say, is that in Holland you have technical judging. So if a dog misses the initial bite in a stick attack, the judge is allowed to ignore it if he thinks that it is because of his speed that the dog was not able to have a good grip, and he can keep the dog at 5s. It hardly happens. He can get 1 point deduction of the dog, so that is 1 time for the way of stopping is 4. If the judge sees that the dog is a little bit reluctant, his ears are up, he hits the brakes just a little bit before we call that the nice word, gathering himself, but he's just saying, oh shit, I have to do this again. Then instead of 1 point, the rule book says the judge can take as many as 7 points away from the dog. 7 points meaning from each of the 7 exercises will get 1 point deduction. So instead of 7 times 4, you get 7 times 5, you get 7 times 4 points. I'm not the KNVP judge, so there might be a little variables here that are different. If the dog is really bad and he's just hanging on, but he still made it and he was hanging on, and again, according to the 2 judges that are on the field, the judge can give the dog 7 times 3 points. Let's say the dog hits the decoy, he falls off, he's impressed by the threat with the stick up again, so he gets, instead of that 7 times 5 or 7 times 4, he gets 7 times 3 points, 21 points. That is the minimum that you need to have in order to continue with the exercise. So if one thing is a little bit less, then the judge will call you. Let's say one thing is about, instead of a 3, it became a 4. Then the judge will say, okay, come over here, say you're done for the day. Good luck next time when you try with your dog. Most of the times nowadays, the handler many times decides to just get rid of the dog. It's still a very good dog. Guess where the dog goes to?
The United States?
Right.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Hopefully.
Right. Or to Vietnam, to Korea, to wherever. So that is about the points. So even everything one thing counts, and that is because of the technical judging that makes it so complicated to score all the points for each exercise, because that goes throughout the whole program.
So one thing that's unique about KNVP is is the suit. Now, in the United States, in French and Mondial Ring, PSA, all the suit sports, with the exception of KNVP, well, and NDBK to that extent, they have their own special suit too. That's only got accepted targets on the form, and that's shins. But the suit for KNVP is much different than the French suits that like we wear in PSA or we wear for Mondial Ring or French Ring. Talk about what those things are, because they're heavy as shit and they're multi-layer and all kinds of stuff. And talk about why they are that way, like how that happened, how it turned. Like you guys are literally right next to France, and for whatever reason, you guys have a completely different suit, completely different kind of setup for dogs, like everything else.
This is one of those questions that people in Holland never ask. And you know why? Because you don't know any better. It is a tradition. The suit was there. I can tell you this: in the mid-80s, people in Holland started to buy pants from Belgium suit, similar to the French suit, but a lot heavier. And I was lucky to have in those days a big vehicle. So I started to go also to Belgium with a bunch of friends, and we bought a bunch of Belgium suits. Why? It was easier to put on and easier to put off. So if you would ask, why are you using those suits in Holland? I cannot give you a straight answer. The only thing that I can say is it is tradition. It hasn't changed a bit. It is nothing fancier. It is just because it is KNVP. As I said, people here in the States ask me many times questions that I said, well, I cannot answer you that because I was force-fed when I became a member of a club. We do this, and those don't ask stupid questions. You know what I mean? And it's not that it is a stupid question, but that's how the attitude was in those days. And I cannot give you a definite answer. I prefer the Belgium suit. You just have to run a little bit faster and train a little bit harder to run as good as French decoy. But I can tell you that I was used to my KNVP suit, and it fitted me like a glove. So I was wearing it all the time, 7 days a week. I did decoy work 4 times at my club and 5 days a week at the company I worked for a long time. So you basically grow into it after a while, and I'm pretty sure you have the same feeling. You don't feel it anymore. It's just part of your work, so to say. But it is easier to put on and off, that's for sure.
So, yeah, and they're super heavy. I've worn them a couple times. I much prefer the French ring suit or the French suits just for mobility, and they are lighter. And but I will say that the KNVP suits are easier to work dogs that bite super fucking hard on, and they are a little more protective, but not a ton. But I do like them for some of that stuff in terms of, you know, working some dogs. They do promote hard bites, and the dogs do have to bite hard to maintain and to stay there. So since you've been around since '93 in the United States, what has changed on the police side? You know, I know that a lot of things have changed in training in general. I tell people all the time that, you know, the United States has some really talented police trainers, probably some of the best in the world. And I think a product of that is because of the laws in the United States and how we police and how we use dogs here. But talk a little bit about the evolution of it and where you see the future of canine going once we get out of fucking 2020, which we are when this episode uploads. We're going to a new year and hopefully no more COVID. So
when I started in '93 here in the States doing seminars, there was a big difference already visible real quick for me in the training method, in the training, but mainly in the attitude from the heads towards, no, quiet. My wife is coming home, so all my dogs are getting excited. Because in Holland, there was in those days way less responsibility put on the handler regarding bites that were accidental. It was just swept under the rug and talking to a captain or something like that, and then it was, we pay for your pens, and that was it. In the States, already at those days, there was talking about liability, and we cannot do that, and you have to be careful. And it has become even quiet. It became even worse. And in Holland, they kind of have been catching up with the United States in the sense that in Holland, they have to be really careful now when they want to put a dog in for a bite, because things have changed, times has changed, but also the rules and regulations have changed all over the world, probably. The one thing I never could understand is that, and later, of course, later I understood it, that they want the dogs to be multi-purpose in the sense that they have to do drugs, they have to do explosive, and on top of that, they also have to do protection work, bite work. And many times they also wanted to be social, and I never understood that. In Holland, we had a city like Amsterdam who had 40 or 60 dogs. None of those dogs were used for demos. In the sense that they went to school. Of course, they did demos, but that was with police officers putting in a suit. Nothing to promote a sheriff, a chief, a mayor, or something like that. That was not the case. I was amazed when I saw that for the first couple of times. And I said, well, that's why you guys want dogs that are at least manageable when they are around people. We didn't give a shit about that stuff. Just stay away from it. I see my dog at the end of the lead. You just stay away from me, otherwise you get bit. And that has changed in Holland also quite a bit. So I'm not really surprised that it has changed over there. But it was already going on here in the States that the attitude towards it was a lot different than here. Plus, the United States is so big that when I trained a dog for somebody in Florida, I lived in Florida for 12 years, it was completely different than when I trained somebody for the state of New York. And I was amazed about it. There was not, and still is not, a federal program where everybody has to pass the same standards. And one of the things that is happening because of that is that there are agencies, especially smaller ones, that don't even do a test still to these days, or buy a dog from somebody, and that somebody is crooked enough, so to say, to certify the dog while he doesn't have any authority to get that dog certified. And that is still happening in the States. It doesn't happen in Holland because Holland is small, so it's easier to control the stuff. But that's how I think about the difference. The bite work is pretty much the same idea to control. In Holland, they train better because most of the instructors are also KNVP people. Here, just the guy who knows a little bit more becomes the instructor many times because of being the longest in the canine unit. And that luckily that is changing little by little.
So one of the things I got one more question, then Ted's going to talk about your apparently molten lava hot sauce. But so my question is, one of the saddest things that I've seen over the years is how, and I blame the Americans, how we have, in my opinion, destroyed the German Shepherd breed over here. I still get good German Shepherd dogs for police work, but they're always from Europe. I shouldn't say always. 99% of them are from Europe. There are still a few decent breeders, but I think there's so much cancer and structural problems and spinal issues and bones floating around in this freaking country in German Shepherds. My fear is that we will also destroy the Belgian Malinois. Have you seen anything headed that direction at all?
Yes, it will eventually happen to the Malinois also, and I'm pretty sure that you have seen many times on Facebook that the one thing people do nowadays, that there are two opposites. There are people that breed a good dog to a good dog, and then they tell everybody, and the pups are just 2 days old, that they will have full mouth bite, they will have extreme high prey and food drive and all that shit, and they're only 2 days old. And they're not saying we expect, no, these dogs will. And another really nice selling point is these dogs can only go to experienced handlers. And that's fucking bullshit. If you want a dog, you buy a dog. All that crap here. The reason why dogs will eventually get messed up, and it happened to the German Shepherd, is plain and simple money. If somebody is willing to breed a shitty dog to a good dog and hope that good dogs come out, and the good dog is the male and the shitty dog is the female, and they're trying to sell them, and one of them is good, then they do another breeding because maybe next time two of them are good. The popularity of the German Shepherd has, I kind of hurried that quite a bit. The Malinois is still considered a crazy dog, so not for first-time owners, but everybody one day was a first-time owner. You know what I mean? So those are that I cannot get a grip on. That people say that it's already happening with the Malinois. Nowadays, through DNA testing, they can recognize faults in dogs. So people have the right attitude towards breeding. Will not breed or repeat the breeding, but at the same time, other people will ignore that. They say, well, the chances are very little that it comes up, so I just do a breeding. Everybody expects to have the good breeding, but I know a guy who is very well respected in the detection world, who told me, Rick, we spent $20 million on a breeding program, but it still was an educated crapshoot. And that's what people have to keep in mind. You cannot, if it was a science, then we wouldn't have bad dogs in the world anymore. It comes close to being a science, but there's still so much gaps in breeding and training, in raising a dog, the environment. Still! That people start saying, you cannot say my dog is the best dog in the world and it will be producing only good dogs. As you quoted earlier, this dog was bred 130 times. Well, that is Murphy law. Eventually, you will end up with a couple of good dogs. But was that coming from the, and nothing bad about those dogs that you mentioned, but at the same time, that's how you have to look at things. If he's bred 130 times and he had 1,100 pups, you have to look at the thing, how many were actually titled or working in police work. And then nowadays there are statistics about it, but in the past, nobody really cared about it. Like you said before, I just look not farther than what I see, and that's it.
Excellent. Yeah. And, and I kind of echo what Eric said. And there is, a sore lack. And even with, Malinois and some Dutchies and with German Shepherds, there's, I've been burned a couple of times from vendors sending me dogs that have fucked up like spines and just crazy shit and stuff that should have been avoidable both in the United States and from Europe. But when I get a dog in now, like he's here for 2 days and I take his ass straight to the vet and make sure he's got 42 teeth, 2 nuts, both eyes, all feet. Like doesn't have heartworm. Like I've had dogs shipped to me from Northern Europe where there is no heartworm that got here and I take them straight to the vet, and 2 days after they got here, they were heartworm positive. And I'm like, how does that happen? Because it takes 6 months to test positive. And the dog's been here 2 days, and he came from a place without heartworm. And they're like, oh, I don't know. I'm like, well, I don't know what you want me to tell you, but he's got it. So it's not, I don't think it's necessarily endemic to the United States, but for sure, you're right. It is money. So completely off topic of dogs. Several years ago, you posted on Facebook about like having hot sauce, and I'm like, fuck, how hot can this shit be? Because I like hot stuff, right? So I'm like, how hot can this dude? This dude's from fucking Netherlands. Like, they have fucking, dogs, and they race bikes, they speed skate, and they have badass chocolate and waffles and shit. And I'm like, how hot can this be? Right? We have Mexico, just the South, it's the invention. It was one of the places, where they have hot sauce invented. And you sent me this shit, and I almost died the first time I ate it. It was so fucking hot. What is in that, and why is it so hot? And you tried to explain it to me about like it has something to do with like what the Dutch colonized or something. I don't know, but explain to me what's in that shit and why it's so hot. Because I have to cut it with regular hot sauce, and then I can make it eat. It's edible, and it tastes really, really good.
This is the most important part. Everybody can make hot sauce, but nobody can make hot sauce that tastes good. It is always sour. They always use vinegar to preserve it, and I don't use any vinegar at all. I'm not going to tell you what to put in there, because then everybody starts to make it. And I've already had offers from people that say, "Oh, Rik, let's go and make that shit in bulk." I said, "No, quiet. Let's make that shit in bulk." I said, "No, I'll keep it with me." Give the recipe to my wife, so that is her inheritance. Let me tell you this, just a little story. This summer I did a seminar in South Carolina, and with a friend of mine. He's trading APA. His name is Anthony Rosa. He is Italian, and he wants to know that, so he cooked for 3 days Italian. So when it was lunchtime the first day, there was a table with about 20 different kinds of things. And they asked me, "Rik, can you bring some hot sauce?" I said, "Yeah, sure." So everybody went in that little building, and I yelled at everybody, "Okay, people, this is hot sauce. You can eat as much as you want, but it is extremely hot. Be careful." So everybody took a little bit, probably, if they wanted to. Then this one lady who was not inside filled up a plate, and she thought, "Well, that's nice. They have the marinara sauce separate."
Oh no!
So she put it on her food, bite, and she was sick for the rest of the day. And she didn't. I asked my friend, "Did she ever show back up at the club?" She said, "No, but that was a joke, because they are. She's extremely busy with her work, so they couldn't come for a while. But that's how hot it is, and I like to make it hot. I eat it every day, except in the mornings with my food. But for the rest, I eat it all the time. I'm not gonna tell you the secret. I use extreme hot peppers, whatever I can get my hands on.
Yeah, no
and,
shit.
There's one secret. There's one secret to it, and I can tell you that the capsaicin in what creates the hot will be released double when you bring it to a boil, and that's the only secret that I tell you. So it almost doubles the heat when you heat it up quite a bit. So I give it to friends and family just to send them, just to have fun how they react on it.
It's really good. I mean, like I mean, that last batch you sent me, like I had it for quite a while, and it's really, really good. But it is, I mean, I have to use it sparingly. And I love hot food. Even Alicia loves hot shit, and she even tried it. She was like, "Holy cow!" But you're right, it does not taste like you said, sour. It's not real acidic. So it's not like a vinegar. Oh, I don't know. Like you said, I don't know what's in it. But it is definitely full fucking value. So like it is definitely full value. So Eric likes hot stuff. You want some, Eric?
I don't like hot stuff. That's you're wrong.
We'll get you to try it.
Yeah, okay.
Oh man. Eric, so where can we find you?
You can find me on YouTube on Working Dog Radio, Van S K9 on Instagram, HRD Police K9 on Instagram, Van S K9 Academy on Facebook it's mostly pets, but how about you?
I am at Ted_Summers on the Instagram, at Torchlight K9 on Instagram, letter K number 9, HRD Police K9 on Instagram and Facebook. Torchlight on Facebook is Torchlight one word K9. Yeah, so all those places. And of course, this is the Working Dog Radio. We have our own one, Working_Dog_Radio. You should follow that. And yeah, we have the YouTube channel, which is up. You'll be able to see some of my reactions when Rick is telling the story about his fucking hot sauce. And God, that stuff it's really good though. I need some more. And so, yeah, be sure to subscribe and like. Rick, if people want to get a hold of you, how do we get a hold of you for seminars or anything like that?
Facebook, first of all. And you also can dial my number for advice, 1-900 I Ask Rick.
Let me do that right now.
Facebook is the best way to get it.
Okay, I was like, I mean, we'll try.
No, that's the only way to get a hold of me. The best way to get a hold of me. I have everybody basically has a tendency to forget about their emails nowadays. Everything is on freaking Facebook. I do a lot of my business through Facebook and Messenger. Once in a while, I get a message from somebody. Hey, Rick, you have a podcast, so check your emails on a regular basis. So that's what I did. The one thing I need to tell you, when we are finishing up, and I'm pretty proud of it, because it has changed the detection work in the 2001, when 9/11 started. In 2001, not even a month later, my ex and I were working in Florida for a detection company, training dogs for explosives. I'm pretty handy. I'm a tool guy. I'm also trying to experiment with dog training. I asked a friend in Florida, his name is John Hepler, if he could make me something where a ball would pop out of a machine. He made me one. We were training in a big building, a target building that was empty. And when he brought that machine, when he pushed the button, the tennis ball went all the way to the ceiling of the target building. We fine-tuned it, and it became the first pop-up machine. I told my friend to put a patent on it, but he had a couple of businesses that he was real busy with. He said, Rick, I don't have time for that shit. I'm not doing it. And he said, you do it. I said, no, I'm not doing it. It's your thing. I'm pretty proud of that, because not even a year later, Dan Reiter here in Wisconsin started selling the pop-up machines. And that's how it started. And now everybody is using those kind of machines to make dogs and get them the primary reward right from source. Quiet! That's the one thing I wanted to tell the world.
Excellent. That is fantastic. Yeah. They've been around. Yeah, and now we've got new versions of them. They got boppers and they got droppers. And yeah, where there's some take their use a super light tool and hit the top of the fucking building. So yeah, you have to kind of dial it back a little bit. This was one of those interviews that we have wanted to do for a long time. I'm super glad we got the chance to do it. But yeah, I really appreciate it, Rick. It's been awesome.
I enjoyed it. quite a bit.
Thanks.
Awesome.
Now go eat. It's time to eat dinner.
Yeah. And so we'll see everybody on the 13th with our buddy from TCSO here, Mick Bonet. So yeah, everybody, thanks. We'll talk to everybody soon. Somebody that's been with us since the beginning of this entire program has been Arnaud from ALM Equipment out in Vegas. Arnaud does a fantastic job making suits, tugs, and sleeves. One of our favorite things that we use at every HRD is the hidden sleeve from Arnaud, and I've got multiple suits, and so does Travis. We use them as a kennel all the time. ALMK9equipment.com is where you can find it. Be sure to use the discount code WD Radio for 10% off your first order.
Tripwire Operations Group, man, what a great group of guys. It's an internationally recognized leading provider of products, services, and training for federal, state, and local law enforcement agencies and military units. Tripwire Operations Group is an ATF licensed explosive materials manufacturer, importer, exporter, and dealer with a wide range of explosive products to offer, including custom kits. These kits are great for detection canine imprinting, and they have 3 different kits to choose from. The use of all 3 kits combined creates a complete explosive threat package for canine teams. Be sure to check them out. If you go there to pick up your explosives, they will let you blow some crap up. Check them out at tripwireops.org.
Lastly, this music that you hear has been graciously granted to be used by us by Brother Deeg. He's a fantastic artist out of Louisiana. Guy does a magnificent job. He's been through Tulsa a couple times, and I've seen him live. Be sure to hit him up at brotherdeeg.net, DEGE.net, or go to Apple iTunes or Spotify or wherever and download and buy CDs. But be sure to hit him up, buy some shirts, and support the guy. The guy does a fantastic job, and he's a privateer kind of like we are. So brotherdeeg.net, DEGE, hit him up. This episode and this entire series and this podcast is co-produced and co-owned by Alicia Brandt.